walk me through your volleyball timeline of your life.
Okay.
So how did you get started? Your parents were they into it? Did they get you started? You go high school, have success, playing college, and, walk us through the timeline.
Yeah. So basically, when I was younger, we actually lived in the Woodlands. I went to Lamar Elementary, kinder, and first grade. And my sister is 5 years older than me. And what was popular in the Woodlands in junior high was gingham girls and high steppers and all of that. Well, we moved to San Antonio. I was in second grade. And what was popular in San Antonio was girls sports. So my sister started playing sports in junior high instead of doing gingham girls dance, stuff like that. So she started playing volleyball, basketball, and track. Well, when I was in sixth grade, she was playing volleyball, and I decided to try it too. I'd done a bunch of other sports prior to that, but since she was playing, then I just tried out for a club team, and I was 12 and made it, and that's when I kind of started playing. So, and then from there, played club sixth grade all the way through high school. I went to San Antonio Clark my freshman and half of my sophomore year, so I was on varsity as a freshman and sophomore, and then moved to Cy-Fair mid-year my sophomore year of high school and graduated from Cy-Fair. And so I played varsity all 4 years of high school and then earned a full ride to SMU, where my freshman year at SMU was the first year we had a program. So we started the program. So I was one of the first 4-year, graduating class or whatever.
So then you play in college. What made you say, hey, I want to be a coach?
Well, oddly enough, my senior year, that's when Lonnie and I, my husband, started dating, and he still had some eligibility left at A&M football. So when I graduated from SMU, I moved down to College Station while he finished up school, and my degree was actually broadcast journalism. I wanted to be on ESPN, but then I met him and moved to College Station, and then I just kind of got into, at the time too, College Station was a lot smaller, so there wasn't, a ton of job opportunities. I worked at a daycare for a year, kindergarten, and then a junior high coaching job opened up, teaching, and so in Bryan. So I ended up going and doing that, and then kind of from there decided that was, what I was going to do. And then when Lonnie graduated from A&M, he was actually an economics major, but it was right after 9/11 happened. And again, not a lot of job opportunities. And one of his A&M coaches said, hey, have you ever thought about coaching? And he had, he that was something he was interested in. And so long story short, he got offered a position coach down in Lake Jackson at Brazoswood High School. And so I went down and I got on at the junior high. And so he was coaching the high school, I was coaching the junior high. And then our second year down there, the head volleyball job at the high school came open at Brazoswood, and I took that job. So we both coached together 1 year at Brazoswood.
How old were you at that time? Like 24?
Yeah, probably, I think. Yeah, early 20s. And then oddly enough, this is very bizarre, but I told him, him being a football coach, I said, I'll follow you anywhere. I said, there's only a couple places that if they came open for volleyball, I would be interested. I said, number one, Cy Creek, because at the time I went to Cy-Fair, Cy Creek they were awesome. My sister played them in volleyball in the state championship. So that at the time they were a powerhouse. And then we had actually at Brazoswood played the Woodlands in a tournament, and they just had tons of athletes. They hadn't had a ton of success, but I was like, oh, these girls. And so I said, if the Woodlands came open too, that'd be, and the next day it was actually, I saw it on the job board. And so I put in an interview and somehow got it.
Wow. So then what do you feel like was the turning point of that program when you were there?
It was funny because my first year there, I had a couple Division I players. One, Megan McNamara, she was my setter, and she was she was a stud. And it was funny because they hadn't, I got there in 2004 and they hadn't been to the playoffs since 1998 prior to that. And it was one of those kind of magical seasons. We went undefeated in district and made the playoffs. We got bounced pretty early, but I think it was just love of the sport, or just kind of getting them into it. And so we had a lot of success my very, first year. And then after that, volleyball kind of started becoming more popular there. And then kids started playing club. And that's what I would say after, probably 3-4 years, it really changed because, again, the interest, the popularity, and then more kids playing club. Because that first year I was there, hardly any played. Yeah. And then by the time I left, everybody played.
So take me through that 2-year period. Could you see that those girls, that team was going to have a chance to win a state championship? Could you see it before it was happening?
Yeah, some of those, like Courtney Eckenrode, I coached her older sister my first 2 years at the Woodlands, and her older sister Lindsay played at Wichita State. And so at my camps from the time she was, little bitty. And I just saw her emerge and some of those other girls, and we would go down to the junior high and work with that group, when they were at McCullough. And yes, I mean, we definitely saw the potential with Kelly Quinn and her sister Courtney Quinn, and then Rachel Reed, all of them. And then Madison Daniel actually was a transfer moving from Atascocita, mm-hmm. which that first year we won state really kind of, completed the puzzle of that group. But they were just so super talented,
So, what is the secret sauce to coaching? What is your, is it communication? Is it trust? Is it knowing when to, push and pull kids? What was your biggest positive or your strength in coaching?
I'd say probably my two biggest strengths. One is relationships. I definitely think the better you know your players, like you said, what works for them. Some kids can be yelled at. Some kids need, hugs. I think the relationship part, we genuinely, we talked every day before practice. We had shared time, and the kids shared what was going on with their life. That to me was huge, the relationship part. I'm still close, or I feel, close to a lot of my former players today. And then I think I was good at putting people in the best situation to be successful, chemistry-wise. I kind of joke because I think that's one of my husband's strengths too, just putting kids, when I first got into coaching, I ran a 5-1 offense because that's what I did in college. Well, as I got older, I realized, okay, well, your personnel, you got to match what you do based on your personnel. And I feel like that's something I got better at as I got, as I coached more, instead of just this philosophy, I'm going to do this defense, I'm going to run this offense. It was like, okay, let me see what kids I have, and now let's implement the best situation and how we're going to be most successful. I mean, all 3 state, teams, we ran something different. The first one in 2010, I ran a 3 middle offense, and I had 2 setters. One played front row, one played back row, and then we ran a 5-1. And, so I just feel like that, those 2 things, relationships, and then getting them, most out of your personnel, or making them fit what they have best, not necessarily what you, think is going to work. If that makes sense.
Did you think that you would be, win 2 state championships? Like when you got into coaching, like, this is my goal, I'm going to win championships. What, were you surprised by it?
No,
Did it
and
happen?
What's funny is, as a player, I made it to the regional finals 3 times. My freshman, junior, and senior year, I lost by 2 points, and at the time, the 3rd game, and all 3 of those things. I mean, like I was cursed. And so it was always kind of a joke. Like, I was cursed as a player. My sister won a state championship in volleyball at Clark, and I could never get there. And that very first year we actually made it to the state tournament. Like, I just couldn't believe, it was so surreal because I was so close as a player 3 times doing that. And then, once we got there, it was just, no, I did not think I'd get there 3 times, and I didn't think we'd win it twice. Now, the first year we won it, I definitely knew we had the talent. I mean, we were loaded, but that second year, the funniest part about that group, whom I love, they thought we were going to win it from the beginning. There were some games my assistants and I'd be like, good Lord, we're going to be one and done in the play now. Yeah. That group was probably a little bit both amazing, but that was a little more surprising and then kind of really cool but I think a lot had to do with they'd been there before. And so to them, it was like, oh, heck yeah, we're going to win another one, so.
What do you miss the most?
The relationships. Yeah. The girls, just being a part of life, even though I still feel like I am, but that part was probably my favorite. But, getting to see my own daughters play now and getting to go to Lonnie's games and all of that is definitely, been worth it. And plus my girls play clubs, so this has been pretty cool this year. I kind of roam at their club, Houston Skyline, and one roam with Courtney Eckenrose, the head coach. So that part's been awesome because I'm like her assistant.
So, would you 5 years from now, your girls are gone, would you go back and get into coaching again?
Oh, I'm not sure. Like I said, I've always kind of been one of those two, like I liked going out on top, yeah. But I don't know. I guess it had to be the situation, but it's not something that, I've thought about or necessarily want to do.
So, Mallory, tell me about, your timeline as a volleyball player. Did you always think, hey, I'm going to play volleyball. My mom played volleyball. My dad's into sports. Was this always kind of your passion?
Basically, because I just always grew up in the gym from whenever I was, as long as I can remember, playing during my mom's practices at the Woodlands and whenever she coached club, just tagging along, So I played around when I was really young with different sports, but I was always the one that I was going to end up playing long term.
Like, okay, so you played varsity as a freshman?
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, sir.
What was your expectations going into high school, I guess?
I knew it was going to be a lot different than junior high because the difference between junior high and club is so much different. So I was excited for to be playing with older girls, and the pace was just so much than anything I'd ever experienced because playing seniors, they're just on a whole different level. So that means I have to bring my game up. So that was really cool.
So what are your goals? Do you want to play in college? What's your future look like?
Yeah, I definitely am considering playing college. So that would be my aim, I guess, is to get a scholarship, and play on that level.
What do you remember the most, kind of being in the gym with your mom's team? What players do you remember the most back in the day?
Courtney Eckenrode would be one. Kelly Cook and her sisters. Stacy DeFrancisco. Yeah. Those were some of the major ones that I looked up to, and I kind of got a relationship with them too. So.
Does your mom ever flash her rings and stuff and walk around with her SMU gear? I mean, what is it like growing up with a mom that had tremendous success in volleyball?
It's definitely, she doesn't brag about it that much, but I mean, it's really cool because I can brag about it to like my friends and stuff. And she's definitely set up a really high expectation for myself in my future. And it's just pretty awesome to have a role model like that in my life.
Okay, finally, what do you think? What are your strengths, first of all, and then what do you think you got to work on over the next couple of years?
Thanks. I'm definitely a really hard and a team player, and I can kind of just go in wherever the team needs me. For school, I played all the way around, and for club, I'm focusing on libero and defensive specialist. So, and for junior high, I actually set too. So I'm a good all-around player, and I can just kind of go in wherever I'm needed. And then definitely the next few years as our seniors are leaving and at College Park, I need to work on my leadership and just kind of helping the team in that aspect for sure.